Yeah, so there are two kind of major classes of CAR T cell therapy. So we have the autologous CARs, where the CARs are generated from the patient's own T cells, and that's which is FDA approved by different pharmaceutical companies. They are FDA approved for lymphomas, myelomas, and also for adult and pediatric BLL. They're not yet approved for CLL. But most of the development has happened in autologous CARs. But there are some disadvantages of autologous CARs where you have to collect the patient's own T cells, you have to manufacture the CARs. It takes time to do those things, several weeks sometimes. And then you have to give some bridging chemotherapy sometimes to these patients so that they can sustain a response, or at least they don't progress. So allogeneic CAR is a totally different way of looking at things. We're deriving the CAR T cells or the T cells to make the CARs from either a healthy donor, like another human being, a healthy person, or you can derive from cord blood, or you can have a cell line which generates these T cells or NK cells, and where you can make the CARs out of them. So that's the field of allogeneic CARs. And there have been several trials. Some of them have been published or reported. Several are ongoing right now, which are happening. Many of these trials have enrolled patients with ALL. Some of the trials have enrolled patients with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, including CLL, and also including Richter's. I would say the majority of the data with these CARs is also in the field of ALL and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Very limited data right now we have for patients with CLL and Richter's. But the advantage overall of an allogeneic CAR would be that these CARs will be pre-made. They're already made, they're ready to go, they're in a freezer in your lab or in your institution. And once you have a patient, you're going to give the CARs. You admit them, you give them chemotherapy, fludarabine, cyclophosphamide, lymphodepletion, and the CARs are ready to be given the next day. So that's the big advantage in some of the logistics, the ease of administration, and eventually the hope is that these allo CARs will lead to decrease in the cost of production of these CARs, because then you don't have to make an individual CAR for each patient. You can make bulk CARs for like 100 patients, 200 patients, and then the cost will be much less. So I think the field of allogeneic CAR is still quite early. A number of trials are ongoing, and now many of the investigators, many of the pharmaceutical sponsors, companies are looking at next generation of allo CARs to design the CARs in a way that they can persist longer in the patient. So that's where the field is kind of moving right now. So I think we'll have some data presented at upcoming ASH meeting, but I think the next 1 to 2 years are very important when we'll have multitude of trials being reported across the disease spectrum, CLL, Richter's, ALL, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, about allogeneic CAR T cells.